Hello and welcome to my channel Inspiring Life Changes. My name's Colette and I'm here today to do a reading for the collective full moon in Scorpio, which happened earlier today in the UK at 11:46 this morning and happened earlier in other parts of the world. So this is the card that I pulled out from the Moonology, or the wisdom cards, the moon wisdom cards as I like to call them, the full moon in Scorpio, and it says it's time to release negativity. Now this astrological read is basically my kind of interpretation, if you like, of what's happening in the sky, in the bigger picture of what's taking place down here on our planet Earth, as everything is connected. And that's why I believe that astrology is what astrology is and does what astrology does. So with that being said, I've got my notes here, which I've been writing over the last few days. There is quite a lot of it there, and like I said, it is my interpretation, so I'm kind of ad-libbing as I go along, as well as kind of things may come into my head. So I'm going to start saying happy full moon in Scorpio, and it's taking place at 17 degrees and 20 minutes, and when the moon is full in a planet, or sorry, in a sign, the other sign, the opposite sign, will have the sun in it. So we have the moon in Scorpio and the sun in Taurus. And it's the spotlight from the sun, that is giving the full moon its light, its brightness. And so it's literally like a spotlight. And because it's in Scorpio, it's to do with our subconscious. It's to do with the hidden emotional realm, our deeper feelings, our intuition, our instincts. And it's like the sun, because it's a spotlight, is bringing it all up to the surface, which is kind of what this is saying here as well. It's time to release negativity, and that's really what the full moon in Scorpio is about. It's about bringing up all that stuff that has been buried for a long time, sometimes for many years. So the actual reading, yeah, and also when it's a full moon, just talk a brief bit about the moon itself. So the full moon can also bring out this sense of madness as well, that has even been kind of scientifically proven as well, that things get crazy during the time of the full moon. And this has got a lot to do with the fact that the moon rules the tides, it rules the emotions, because of the fact that it's water related. And we ourselves are more fluid than we are solid. So we are always affected more by the time of the full moon than at any other time, really. And being in Scorpio, this is going to be an incredibly intense and highly emotional moon, especially as we are all still in this Saturn in Aquarius lockdown phase as well at the moment. Saturn's still squaring Uranus, which I will also talk a wee bit about later. And there is less outlet for our physical and creative and emotional bodies at this moment in time as well. So because we're all on lockdown, because we can't get out and do the things that we'd normally be doing and are wanting to do and just have normal kind of lives again, we're all kind of in that frustrated stage, I feel. And it's kind of, you know, when's this going to end? When are we going to get free from this? What's going to change? How's it going to change? And so we're all kind of getting to that frustration stage, and this full moon in Scorpio could really kind of bring that in. It could really bring that kind of eruption to the surface as well, because it is emotional. It is emotions that we're dealing with during a full moon in Scorpio. So we could also find ourselves becoming very overwhelmed by this period of time as well, and kind of we need to take a step back and take some deep breaths and kind of remind ourselves that everybody is in the same situation at the moment. It's not just one of us or a few of us, it's just about the whole world is on shutdown. So the moon, as I was saying, rules our emotions, the subconscious, watery ruler of Cancer. The moon rules the sign of Cancer, which is a very sensitive, again, very similar to Scorpio in the same sense of it feels, it's emotional, it's intense, it's intuitive, it's deep feeling, and they both also have shells, which they can both kind of hide in. Although the Scorpio is less likely to do so because it's got more of a an armour, I would say, than the crab, because of its sting in its tail as well. So that's another thing that we have to remember about Scorpio, which I will also talk about later in the reading too. So yeah, it rules the worlds of the tides and the cycles. And even though, as I was saying, you know, it rules the cycles of the tides and also of the earth itself, and also of the female form as well. But that doesn't necessarily mean that it's just a female thing. Men also are affected by this. They also have emotions, even though, you know, it may not be as apparent to see them as it is with women, who are kind of more ruled, shall we say, by the moon than men. Men still are affected. It's still a masculine what am I trying to say here? Kind of, you know, it's not just a feminine dominated thing, emotions. So, and it doesn't mean that men don't feel it, even though they might not show it as much as women. I think that's really what I'm trying to say. But during this full moon and during this time of lockdown, we may get an uprise in kind of seeing emotions in general come up to the surface, and they may not all be good emotions as well. There may be a lot of emotions that come up that are going to need to be very carefully handled as well. And one of the reasons for that is also because we have Mars squaring over to the full moon energy of Scorpio as well. So there can be some more aggressive reactions, shall we say, to this full moon as well. So that also needs to be watched for. In the sign of Scorpio, which is the deep emotional subconscious hidden realm of our feelings, Scorpio buries things, and it buries it really deeply, to the point that sometimes Scorpio itself doesn't even remember that how something made it feel. So it's like you feel something, and I'm talking about things that happen kind of, you know, maybe 10 years ago, 15, 20 years ago, maybe further back than that, maybe even like a year ago, but they're buried. It's like they get buried deep within us. And it isn't until we get to these periods of time that they kind of come up to the surface, which is really what this full moon is all about. It is about bringing it all up to the surface so it can be cleared out and cleansed through. And so in the tarot deck, the moon is about things that are hidden from us, secrets that at the right time will be brought into the light. And Scorpio has the same kind of thing about it. It can be very secretive, it can be very kind of, I wouldn't say deceptive, although I think there is elements of that involved with Scorpio energy as well, because it's ruled by Pluto. And Pluto is all about the underworld and keeping things hidden and under the surface until it's time to bring it out up to the surface, which I feel this time is kind of happening now. And one of the things that keeps coming up in my head, which I should call this video, is from dark to light, because I feel as though that's that kind of where the stage that we're at. We're coming out of the dark and moving more into the light from this full moon forward. And it reminds me of one of the quotes of the Buddha, which has often been misquoted, but I will just read the misquote because most people know that quote if you know any Buddha quotes. And it says, there are three things that cannot be long hidden, and that is the sun, the moon, and the truth. And I really feel that that's where we are at this moment in time collectively in the world, that we cannot for much longer have this truth, this fundamental truth hidden from us. Everything is coming up to the surface. All the things that have tried to be kept hidden over these last 20, 40, 50, 60, 70, however many years it has been, everything collectively as well is coming up to the surface. And a lot of that has got to do with the fact that we now have the internet, and the access to all information is kind of at our fingertips. And in Aquarius, where Saturn is at the moment, because we've been forced into this lockdown, we're all kind of turning more to the internet for answers to things as well. And also there is a lot more research going on out there. There's a lot more people who are kind of wakening up and kind of saying, hang about, you know, is that true? Is that not true? Let me go and find out for myself. So I think that that's also a big major factor as to why things are the way they are at this moment in time. And also the fact that as above, so below. So it's kind of like, you know, the planets do their thing and we kind of end up being the ones that live that out, which is where we are and what we're doing. So the sun in Taurus at this time, opposite the moon, is showing us what we need to feel and accept on a deeper level. This is about our instincts, our intuition, knowing, trusting our own feelings and expressing how we feel, to not allow ourselves to be kept in the dark and hide our true emotions away for fear of consequences that it might stir up. Sun in Taurus is focused on our personal environment, our wants, stability, security. Taurus rules the five senses. It enjoys the good things in life, and it knows the value and the worth through its physical connection to the earth as well. And at this moment in time, a lot of the good things in life are kind of being denied us as well. So we are kind of reevaluating on some level as well. What do we feel about this, and why do we feel about it, and the things that are missing from our lives? What is really important and what isn't as important as we thought it was? So that is all to do with the sun in Taurus as well, opposing this moon, and also squaring over to Mars. And also at the same time, the sun has just recently had a connection or conjunction with Mercury, and it is still at the time of this full moon in conjunction with Mercury. So it's basically saying that it's time to break through the old and worn out ideas and ways of looking at our personal world as just a consumer driven product of society, and really get in touch with how we feel about all of this overconsumption. It's like, how much do we really need in our lives? How much can we survive with? How much have we seen for ourselves over these last few months that we have been able to survive with? And how much do we believe that we still need more in order to survive? So we need to start asking ourselves some difficult but important questions, especially as we just had an exact conjunction with Mercury, which took place on the 14th of May. Oh, sorry, took place on the 4th of May at 14 degrees. The Sun and Mercury came together. And this has not only kind of recharged Mercury, but it's also inspired new ideas, new ways of thinking, new ways of looking at the world, and of course being more outspoken, because Mercury is all about communication. Mercury is about saying, expressing, what do I want, why do I want it, how do I want it. It's about really kind of getting to the nitty-gritty of things, shall we say, based of course on our values of what it is and why it is that we want something. And our values are based on our emotions, how we feel about it, connected to this full moon in Scorpio. So it's also about why it's important to us, not just because of its financial worth, but what it truly means to us on a deeper emotional level. This full moon is asking us to go deeper than below the surface, which is more the kind of logical mind thinking processes. We just kind of go to the surface level with that, and kind of that's where we operate at on a day-to-day basis, which is very Mercury and very Gemini energy. But because the moon is full in Scorpio, and Scorpio is a very deep, intense, emotional sign, we are being asked to go a lot deeper into that process itself during this full moon. And of course, a full moon lasts from one full moon to the next full moon. We will have the new moon in 2 weeks' time, which will be a different energy. But until we have the next full moon, we will still be in the same energy for the next month. So we're being asked to go into the underworld of our feelings and to see what treasures we may have buried there within ourselves. That it is now time to bring to the surface and acknowledge that they may be more valuable than we realised. And this comes up again later as well in the reading. It seems to be a bit of a theme that was kind of developing through this process as I was writing it. The energy of Mercury at 20 degrees and 23 minutes and Gemini is, I feel, also very significant as a major part of this full moon, as the moon's nodes have just moved as well. The moon's nodes have just moved on the 5th of May, 2 days previous to this, which I did a video about. If you're interested, there is a video that you can go and check out and find out more about the moon's nodes being in Gemini and Sagittarius, and I did a reading, an actual tarot reading for that as well. So they've just left Cancer and Capricorn and moved into Gemini and Sagittarius. So the Gemini energy is going to be quite highly aspected and highlighted, I feel, especially as we have Venus in Gemini as well, about to go station retro, which is happening on the 12th of May, and will actually go retrograde on the 13th. And so as Mercury is the ruler of Gemini, and Gemini's symbol is the twins, there is a dual aspect to this as well. And this is something that was coming through quite strongly, and it's been coming through quite strongly for me for the last week, maybe even more than that now. I know it's come out in a couple of my videos. I've spoken about how this energy of the kind of magician is kind of there. And yesterday and the day before, while I was doing this writing, I kind of realised what that was about as well. So it is a dual energy, being the twins, so there's two sides to it. But also its element is air. And it is also known as Hermes in the Greek and Thoth in the Egyptian. But Hermes in the Greek was also the messenger of the gods, and he's also very much the kind of main energy of astrology as well, Mercury, because it's Mercury that goes around the solar system and literally kind of takes the information from these planets and passes it around to all the other planets as well, because it's one of the fastest moving planets other than the moon, of course. But the moon only goes around our planet, so it doesn't go right the way around the whole solar system. So Mercury is the messenger of the gods because it goes all the way around all the planets. So the two sides of Mercury is one that is known as the trickster, and in the Native American mythology he's called Loki, and he also appears in Native American medicine as the coyote as well, which was said to be quite a powerful energy, but it was also an energy that was very difficult to have as a medicine, because the Native American Indians believe that we all have these different animal totems and they all relate to different things, and they are known as good medicine and bad medicines, and coyote was known as being a bad medicine, but he could also be a very positive medicine if you had the strength to know how to tame him in some ways, I suppose, how to kind of out-trick him and kind of play him at his own game. So the trickster energy is mainly not to be trusted. That's the thing about the trickster. As he can fool you into believing something is real when in fact it's just an illusion. Which brings me to the second character of this twin energy, which is the magician. And the magician in today's society is the kind of illusionist. It is the trickster in many ways. And you can thank Hollywood for that, because that kind of has this illusionary thing that we all buy into. And they're kind of tricking our minds while we're watching these films. Our minds are being tricked into believing what we're seeing, even though there's a part of us that kind of knows on some level that it's not happening. We're kind of still tricked into believing it, and that's part of the kind of magic of these things. So, which is the same as, you know, watching an illusionist. You know, when we believe it's real, when it isn't, it's actually fakery, it's sleight of hand, it's smoke and mirrors, it's a kind of look over there, not over here, so that you kind of don't actually see what's going on, so your attention is somewhere else and not where the actual process is or the illusion is taking place. And so it's also very much about wanting or having an audience that wants to believe in magic as well, which is a big theme as well. If you think how kind of popular Harry Potter became, not just with children but with adults as well, because there's this kind of world of magic, and we all still kind of have this connection, which I think we have as children, and we kind of lose it as we get older, and we kind of, you know, everything as a child is full of wonder, and it's kind of, you know, you're learning, and it's kind of, and that kind of wonderment, if you like, gets kind of knocked out of us by educational systems and other people and, you know, parents, and so we kind of become these adults that are just kind of playing out the same roles as the previous adults that, you know, told us initially that we were wrong to believe in it. But a true magician is someone who knows the secret hidden wisdom of the belief in magic, and that it's allowing something to manifest in their lives. And it happens everywhere. every day without us even being aware of it, or what we are doing, or what the process is. And magic is not about things appearing or disappearing in a puff of smoke, which there's plenty of around at the moment. My joss stick wafting over here. Manifesting is working with the elements of nature, and we are all nature. So in the card of the Magician in the tarot deck, he's nearly always shown surrounded with the 4 elements. And this is for a reason, because manifesting starts with a thought in the mind, represented by the logical thinking mind of the element of air. And its symbol is the sword of intellect. So we have a thought, it's in the mind. This thought then becomes an emotion by the sensations and the feeling body of the element of water. And its symbol is the cup or chalice of love. So we have a thought and then it becomes an emotion. How do we feel about it? If it feels good, we can maybe follow that thought into another process. And the next process that comes after that is the process where it can divide into 2, which again is the dual energy, which is coming through really strongly, I feel, at the moment for us all. But this dual energy, at this point, that the energy can split, and it can go 2 ways. One, we can feed this idea and this feeling with a drive, a passion, a desire to achieve it, which is represented as the fire element in the tarot deck. You see it as the fire, the creative energy. It's the symbol of the rod or the wand, or the stave. Usually it has kind of something to do with nature as well. It's either a flaming rod and stave, or, which is the creativity as well, the driving fire, passion, or it can have like leaves coming off of it, so it kind of represents the creative force of nature itself as well. But either way, it's about creativity and kind of what you put into that process. So the second split, I suppose, is the fact that we can feed this idea and feeling again with the same drive and passion, but this time it involves us not believing that we can achieve it. And so either way, we tell ourselves it is possible or impossible, and give ourselves permission to manifest our dreams and desires and an incredibly beautiful, happy life for ourselves. If we believe in it's possible, then that's what we're doing. We're giving ourselves permission to manifest our dreams and desires by feeding it through the process of our thoughts, our emotions, and our creative drive to make it happen, to bring it into our lives and to create it for ourselves. Alternatively, we can tell ourselves it's not possible. And we can do this, like I was saying, both of these is due to how we think about something again. It's due to what we feed it, what we put into it. So we can tell ourselves it's not possible, and both of these can be done in a million different ways for a million different reasons. So you can feed it positively or you can feed it negatively in a million different ways, million different reasons as to why it should happen, why it shouldn't happen. But at the end of the day, either way, it's the 4th element of the physical, which is represented in the tarot deck by the pentacle or the coins, because it is a physical realm, and it's to do with our values. And so that's where we see it manifest. It manifests in the physical. Now you can say, okay, so it will manifest, but what about if it doesn't manifest? Well, the thing is that you're still manifesting it, but you're manifesting it not being there. You're manifesting it as it not being a reality, but it's still happening in the physical world. And I feel that this is kind of the kind of split in a way that is happening at this moment in time. It just feels as though, you know, what we're feeding, and I've spoken about this previously as well, about, you know, the energies that we feed into it is what we're going to get, what we're going to see, what we believe and what we think we deserve. It's going to become a lot more prevalent, I believe, as we go further into 2020 and beyond. And like I said, I have spoken about this before. I think I spoke about it in my new moon in Taurus video, and it started really coming up for me quite strongly. And I also spoke about it in the shifting of the nodes moon video that I did a couple of days back as well. And in that video, I also spoke about how I was writing my notes for this particular video. And it was then that I suddenly became aware of how all the elements are within the sign of Aquarius at this moment in time as well, which is all part of this manifesting energy that I'm feeling is happening for us at this moment in time. So shifting our attention over to this Aquarius energy at this moment in time, in that video I spoke of how we have all the elements in Aquarius at this moment. We have the earth of Saturn, we have the fire of Mars, we have the water of the water bearer sign, the Aquarius itself, and then we have the air element as well, because Aquarius, although it's a water bearing sign, it actually is an air, ruled by an air element. So they're all there. And at this time we also have Mars trining over to Venus in Gemini, the Mercury energy, and bringing it into this Aquarius energy. So it's almost, for me, it feels very much like the birthing of something completely new. It's like we've got all these elements being brought in, particularly with this Venus energy, which is still trining, still being brought in. And kind of the love energy, the light energy from the light bringer herself, kind of adding her feminine aspects to this as well. As we also have the Mars energy there as well, the masculine side of it too. So Venus is also, because she's in Gemini and she's trining over to Mars, because she's about to go retrograde, she is still going to go over this energy as Mars moves away and eventually is going to shift into Pisces. This energy from Venus is still going to be happening because she's still going to kind of be trining over the same place that Mars has just moved away from as she goes back retrograde. So her energy is still going to be coming through into this Aquarius, and I kind of see it as this womb at the moment. I'm kind of getting this womb kind of thing and this kind of conception energy that is taking place there. It's not birth yet, it's conception. The actual birth isn't going to take place until December the 21st. I feel when Aquarius, in the 0 point degrees of Aquarius, Saturn and Jupiter are going to come together, and that is kind of the birthing process that's going to start. So I'm just going to have to catch up on my notes because that's kind of all come out of my head, although I have written it down. So another thing as well is that Mars and Venus, although they have been trining, their trine has not been exact, and it won't be exact until the 29th of September, because Mars is going to go retrograde in Aries and Venus will have gone through her retrograde and she will be moving into Leo. So when they do finally trine exact, they're going to do so in a lot of fire and a lot of passion. The masculine and the feminine energies are both going to be very fired up and very passionate. So of course, with all this 4 months of Venus being retrograde as well, and all this manifestation that's going to be taking place at the same time, with her being within this Mercury energy of the magician and the trickster, just be careful what it is that you ask for over this next 4 months. So the ruler of this full moon is Pluto, who also just went retrograde on the 25th of April and is now making his way back to the spot of the previous conjunction with Saturn, the major, big conjunction that I'm always talking about, that took place on the 12th of January and is still ongoing and still having an effect and still rippling out, and is still going to be rippling out for a long, long time to come. What we're seeing now happening in the world, tip of the iceberg, very tip of the iceberg. Normal is gone, well and truly over. Pluto says so, and you can't argue with Pluto as much as you might want to. So yes, so he's going to be going back to the scene of the crime, basically. Pluto will be returning to that 22 degree spot, the master number of 22 degrees. And 22 degrees, or sorry, that the mastery is basically the name of the game at this time as well. Mastery of ourselves and our emotions. And in Capricorn, which is the sign of hard work, diligence, achievement, and our livelihood, which at this moment in time is kind of all being transformed, transmuted, reevaluated, just kind of everything is really up in the air, although Capricorn is a very grounded, solid sign. It doesn't feel like it at this moment in time. I mean, it's kind of, we're moving away from that really solid energy that we have been in for quite some time now, when we had all those kind of the stellium of planets all in Capricorn, all coming together at that conjunction period of the 12th of January, and the heaviness and the denseness and the kind of real solid feeling that we had at that time is kind of being blown apart, literally kind of blown apart. Not only because Saturn has moved into Aquarius, which is an air sign, and therefore it's kind of brought in more of an up in an air feeling, really, kind of no grounded. It's like Saturn has lost its grounding, and he's kind of, I feel on some level, kind of, you know, a bit like a hot air balloon at times, kind of trying to get back down to earth and not necessarily finding it an easy thing to do. But Capricorn also is represented by the mountain goat, and the mountain goat always likes to climb the highest of the heights, and it's like it's never enough. The mountain goat will get to a certain point and you think, oh right, it's going to stop, but it won't. It will keep going. If there's a point to get to, it will keep going until it reaches the highest of points. And so this full moon, I feel, is also saying to us that we need to do the opposite. Instead of going to the heights, we need to go to the lows. We need to bury down into the deepest depths of our emotions, of our intuition and our feeling and our kind of just releasing all of this stuff, but releasing it in the sense of it being productive for us and something that's going to, in the long term, give us value. So it's not just about kind of being angry or, you know, expressing that anger. It's about putting your energy into things that are going to show you results, really, because in Capricorn, that's what it's about. It's about getting results, achievement. So yeah, I feel at the moment that with this Pluto retrograde as well, we're kind of needing to go down into the depths, into the mines, to see what we can discover down there, rather than always kind of heading upwards. And I find it interesting as well that, you know, the Saturn moving into Aquarius, lockdown, and I spoke about this as well in the Moon's Nodes video, because of the clampdown of air flight as well, that, you know, we're no longer able to just get on a plane and go wherever we want and kind of have our holidays and go and visit people and kind of our whole lives, you know, businessmen whose lives were absolutely dependent on getting on aeroplanes and being somewhere else from, you know, from one day to the next in order to carry on their businesses, and now having to do it from a completely different perspective, grounding themselves. And it is literally like that. It's what's happening with our emotions, I feel, as well. It's kind of, you know, it's all having to be brought down to the ground and to go deeper than that, and stop skimming the surface and to really kind of look within ourselves at this time of this full moon. And that is individually as well as collectively as well. Because until we do clear out this these accumulated baggage that we have that's buried in our subconscious, our fears and our emotions, the things that have kind of held us back and kind of stopped us being able to do that manifestation, if you like, then you know, we will just keep repeating the same story over and over again. But this time is kind of it's a finality. It's kind of almost, I feel as though it's kind of saying, you know, that's over, that's finished. Whatever that was is now a new step forward. It's a new time. It's a new way of looking at the world. And, you know, we have to become more heart-centered and connected at a deeper heart level in order to understand the process of why all this is happening as well. And so Pluto is going to be retrograde over the next 6 months. So this is a long period of time, 6 months. Pluto digging up whatever he missed on his first excursion into the underworld, as he returns to that same point as he originally met up with Saturn and everything kind of took place. We are going to see more top-down establishment crumble. More secrets are going to come up to the surface, be uncovered and transformed into shocking, because both Pluto and Scorpio like to shock. They have this shock value element about them, and sometimes people need to be shocked in order to wake up. So some of the things that may come out over the next 6 months could be very shocking and could have quite a strong emotional like effect. Like, I feel really kind of, you know, some people's worlds are just going to fall apart. I'm just going to put it out there. Some people's worlds are just going to fall apart completely because they just didn't see any of this coming at all. So yeah, the revelations a transformation, and the only way that we can ever transform is when we kind of really go through a death, birth, rebirth process of the old into the new, which is where the world, I feel, is at this moment and point in this collective story. And also because it's got a lot of Gemini energy happening at this moment in time astrologically, I also feel a lot of this is going to involve children. It could also involve education. Education could have something to do with what we kind of, the process that we go through in learning about things that we otherwise would not have even gone anywhere near, looked at or touched. So again, because the full moon is in Scorpio, Pluto's retrograde, I feel that this is the period of time that is really kind of going to bring things up to the surface. But Scorpio, of course, also has a sting in his tail, and it can also be a sign that will seek its revenge as well. So Scorpio knows it can wait, as it also knows that it's best to attack when the enemy is least expecting it. And also Scorpio will wait in respect that their revenge will not be immediate. They will kind of hold on to that, and they will wait really for their revenge. Like they'll put it on the back boiler, but they'll keep it brewing. They won't forget it. It will keep brewing within them until eventually the time will be ready for them and they will strike. And again, you won't see it coming. It is something that you won't see coming. It will just happen. And I feel that this could also be, again, in another 6 months as well. So possibly round about the time of the full moon in Scorpio, in Taurus, sorry, when the sun is in Scorpio and we have the full moon in the sign of the bull. I feel as though that could be the time for the kind of revenge energy that I'm feeling, which would be kind of it would take place on the kind of horns of the bull itself, in a way, like the gorging process is what I'm kind of feeling here. But that is not going to be for everybody. This is kind of more of a, shall we say, a higher echelon thing, in a kind of sense of this is going to be something that's going to take place for those that aren't expecting it, because they're in positions that they think that they're safe in. So also at this time of the full moon, while Pluto is trine across to Mercury, reminding the magician that this old paradigm and way of looking and understanding this world has come to an end. The shift of the power is occurring. And the lies and deceit, secrets, things that have been kept in the dark are all about to be exposed during the rest of 2020. Also, as Pluto is in an ongoing square with Eris, who is at the end of Aries and has been there for the last 100 years. She is the planet of discord and disharmony. And I have spoken about her in previous videos as well. She is also known as the unaccepted female warrior-S energy. And she is kind of showing up at this moment in time as women coming out of the darkness to speak about the brutality that they have suffered at the hands of the masculine, the patriarchal world. Because it's in Aries, which is a sign of the masculine, ruled by Mars. It's the female warrior-S energy in the sign of Mars. So she's finding the courage to stand up and say this is what has happened to me, but she's also finding that courage because she's squaring over to Pluto. And so Pluto is bringing all that stuff up from the dark, from the underworld, from previous kind of history, shall we say. So a lot of this stuff is stuff that has happened earlier on in people's lives and these women's lives that is now being brought out into the light. And we also still have an ongoing Pluto-Jupiter conjunction. There is a lot of kind of what I call background energy happening at the moment with ongoing, long-lasting connections with planets. And so Jupiter is at 27 degrees and 9 minutes. Pluto is at 25 degrees. And it has been happening since mid-February, this conjunction. Started in mid-February. Which I believe is showing up largely in the over-exaggerated and blown out of proportion number of deaths supposedly sweeping across the world. Again, things are changing when it comes to this health issue that we have, and the actual real story is rising up to the surface, shall we say, which all took place while Jupiter was sextiling Neptune. Planet of mystery, nebulousness, the unknown. It has no boundaries. Things that can be seen, things that can't be seen, like with the naked eye. Something you have to have a microscope in order to be able to see them, or a telescope in order to be able to see them. A lot of confusion, and also Neptune rules over plagues. And it's in its home sign of Pisces, 12th house, which is also about kind of having no boundaries, the kind of vastness of space. And its energies of surrender and letting go and just kind of going with whatever the process is, because sometimes we have to go through that process. And if you think about it, in many ways the 12th sign is the last house. It is in many ways the house of letting go, when we in the old age of kind of death, of spirituality, of dying into something else. And astrologically, it's when the sun kind of goes into the depths and comes out again in Aries in spring. It kind of is reborn in the sign of Aries. And so in the tarot deck, it's also known as the energy of the hangman, who willingly surrenders himself in order to be able to see a different perspective and get a different perception of the world in which he lives. And he does this literally by hanging upside down. And if you stand on your head for long enough, or if you kind of somehow hang yourself upside down, you will realize that the world takes on a kind of different look. It's like the brain kind of adjusts, but the world takes on a different look. Until eventually he sees things from a higher subconscious level by blending and merging and feeling his connection to everything as one energy and no separation. And at this time as well, I feel that this is kind of where we're all at with our kind of days. There's no time, everything's kind of merging together. It's kind of like you go to sleep, you wake up. It's kind of like, it's, yeah, I just feel as though there's a sense of things kind of flowing more. There's less hecticness, there's less kind of must do, must be, must kind of energy, and more of a kind of, oh, you know, well, I could do this and I might do that, and you know, and there's more of a, and I feel that, you know, to start with there was kind of this really strong kind of energy, oh, you know, I've got all this time or this time and I must do this and I must do that and I must get this done, and while I've got this time, blah blah blah. And there was a lot more hectic energy in the air and a lot more panic in the air as well. But I now feel that it's kind of people are kind of letting that go and kind of becoming much more accepting in many ways of just surrendering to the moment that they're in. And so this kind of energy with the Hangman and Pisces is kind of also making us realize that there is no separation as well, that everything is connected. And this health issue in many ways has kind of brought that into people's minds, whether or not the actual results that we're seeing are the real results. There is still this kind of thing of, everybody or anybody could be affected. It has no boundaries. So Neptune is at 20 degrees and 22 and is making a beautiful trine across to this full moon energy as well, in its fellow water sign of Scorpio. So Neptune is adding its supportive energy of diving into the depths of the deepest, darkest memories that we have. And I feel it's about the treasure that I spoke of earlier. And this is going back to that kind of point where I kind of pointed it out. Because it's like I felt a rediscovery of a part of ourselves that we had forgotten was there. Something that's kind of been hidden in the dark, in the depths of who we are. And it feels like a jewel that is going to be reevaluated. Something that we found, something that kind of, it doesn't look as though it, at the time it didn't look as though it was very much. It didn't have much appeal to us. So we kind of just ignored it and got on with our lives. What I wrote was that it was a bit dull and unassuming, and a bit like, nondescript. But now, through our experiences in life, this part of ourselves, in a way, like a jewel, if you like, has become very kind of many faceted because of the experiences that we've gone through, emotionally especially. It's like each part of that has chipped away at something, and it's become very kind of like faceted, like a jewel is how I keep seeing it. And it represents our true nature. And each of those facets are different aspects of our true nature. That we're more than just this kind of flat personality. That there are many different sides to our character, to our personality, to our true nature. And this part has been kind of ignored and denied in many ways. But now, as we look at it in the light, we can see how it sparkles. And I feel as though we're going to be looking at this jewel and reevaluating it. And as Neptune is squaring over to Venus in Gemini, manifestation and magician energy again, it feels like it is something we forgot to love. A part of ourselves we didn't know how to value. And now is the time to rediscover its importance as a gift, treasure from the subconscious depths of our being that we may at first want to ignore, as it comes with a challenge of its own, that being able to accept our deepest true nature and calling. And as during this time period, everything just seems to be blending together, as I was just speaking about earlier, and we are no longer being ruled over by time, we have greater capacity to understand and contemplate the deeper meanings of our story. And as we continue on our journey, I feel as though we will learn the true value of what we lost and what we are rediscovering in ourselves and each other. So Venus is now also at 21 degrees and 11 minutes. And is getting ready to station retro, as I said earlier, when she reaches the point of 21 degrees and 50 minutes, which will take place on 12th of May. As I previously mentioned earlier as well, 4 months retro right through to August. Or she's going to be turning retro at the end of July, but she won't actually leave Gemini until we get into August. So that's 4 months of this kind of manifestation energy, I feel, is what this is about. And I feel that this kind of part of ourselves, this kind of jewel, this kind of gem, treasure, gift, is all related to this Venus in Gemini energy. Mars is now at 26 degrees and 4 minutes and is making a square across to the full moon, as I said earlier. Mars is still in Aquarius and is pushing forward with the new vision, the initiative and the idea, plus the commitment that he made with Saturn earlier on. But as it is squaring the full moon in Scorpio, it is challenging this moon to take charge and be bold and courageous in order to take a stand. But the full moon, at the same time, is challenging the masculine warrior energy to become a little softer and round off those hard edges. Relax, slow down, enjoy, and feel whatever it is that's worrying it. And what's bothering or worrying Mars at this moment in time is the fact that he's just about to enter the watery and murky depths of the Piscean 12th house world. Mars doesn't like being in Pisces. Mars and Pisces don't get on. They're completely different energies. One's fire, one's warrior, one's action, get up, go, do. And the other's a dreamer. The other's one that will kind of contemplate and think and dream and wonder. And Mars doesn't have time for that. Just doesn't have time. He just does not want to be bothered with all that kind of nonsense, as Mars would call it. So he knows that it's the final hurdle for him as well. He knows this is his final test before he gets home. His home sign of Aries is just over the other side. But first of all, he's got to make his way and struggle through this kind of, again, subconscious realm, deep feeling, emotions, nebulousness, kind of all intuitive feeling, instinctual stuff that Mars, like I was saying, just does not have time for, just does not want to kind of even contemplate that kind of energy. He's a warrior energy. He wants to get up and go. And he knows he can easily get lost in the kind of murky realm, if you like. So the full moon at this time is giving him a little taste of what is yet to come, what is yet in store for him. And also the need to understand and value from an emotional level the depths of his own passion and to see things from both sides of the dualistic masculine and feminine energy of what drives those desires that we feel, and how it all plays into the bigger and higher conscious mind, and come to terms with the duality of both the masculine and feminine within us all. Because when Mars gets into the sign of Aries, he's also going to have to be dealing with, at some point, Chiron, who's still there as well. their kind of wounded healer energy. So that is going to be brought out very strongly kind of later on in the year as well. So Saturn is now at 1 degrees 56 or 2 degrees in Aquarius and is slowing right down and getting ready to retro on May the 11th, a day before Venus also stations retro, to be followed on the 14th of May by the planet Jupiter. So in a week's time we have 3 of the major outer bigger players and 1 personal planet all will be retrograde. But at the time of the full moon, this full moon, we only have 1 planet retrograde, and that is Pluto. So at the moment, vast majority of the energy is still pushing forward and moving in the direction of where we're heading, where we're going, what's the story. Jupiter at 27 degrees and 9 is sandwiched in between both Saturn and Pluto and is in conjunction with both, adding its sense of freedom, openness and expansion as a reminder to both of them being more malefic energies. Saturn always working through adversity, so Saturn works through the kind of things that we don't want, even though we need energy, which we are seeing very strongly as this lockdown continues. But ultimately this is what it's all been about. This is what Jupiter is saying, like, you know, ultimately all of what's happening, all of this kind of from the conjunction on the 12th to what's taking place now, which has been ongoing from end of January, February, so, or yeah, that's when it kind of first hit the world, round about Chinese New Year, I think it was. So Jupiter is saying, just remember that this isn't just about restriction and lockdown and more governance and more laws and more rules and more taking away of our freedoms. This is about freedom. This is about expansion. This is about openness. This is about people getting their rights met. So Saturn is also still making its ongoing square to Uranus over in Taurus. Hence all the constriction and all the holding back and the control and the lockdown. That's now at, Uranus is now at 7 degrees and 13 minutes in Taurus, which it's been squaring to Saturn since Saturn first moved into Aquarius. As soon as Saturn moved into Aquarius, bang, started to square Uranus, lockdown. Basically, the world shut down, which is happening in order to bring in change that is being enforced on us, but also at the same time liberating us from the shackles of the past. Saturn being about the past, tradition, things that are no longer relevant in today's world and today's society, but are still very much entrenched in who we believe we are. And I see this square very much as the old paradigm of Saturn versus the new paradigm energy of Uranus. And also going back to my previous analogy as well, I see it as the trickster energy of Saturn and the magician energy of Uranus. So another ongoing conjunction, as I said, there is a lot of kind of background conjunctions that have been ongoing. This conjunction's been ongoing since January as well, which is the Chiron and Black Moon Lilith in Aries conjunction, which I've also spoken about in my previous videos as well. So if you want to check out any of my previous videos, they're all up on my site. And this is about this is about the healing process of our kind of deep, darker stories, if you like. Chiron kind of represents not only the wounded healer, but also past lifetimes as well, things that we bring through with us generationally as well, things that are passed on from generation to generation, from parents to their children, and they become these long festering wounds within us that we may not even be aware of as well, but they're allowed to fester. And now Chiron is kind of bringing these up from our childhood and from our early days in order to kind of in order to face whatever it is, however it appears in our lives, because it will be in a multiple way, a myriad different experiences that we will have all experienced, but at the same time we all have these deep wounds that are like I say, generational, because if you go back in history, there is always going to be something that has happened somewhere that is still being lived through on a subconscious level that we're not even aware of, really. And again, it's the reason why we keep playing out the same storylines over and over and over again as well. And I also feel that this has got a lot to do with kind of traditional religions as well, that as we move further into the Sagittarius South Node energy, we will find that things will be, and I'm not saying that religion is bad per se, but I think a lot of what is surrounding the truth of religion is all very kind of, it's man related. It's kind of been made up in many ways to suit the story of the time, or the time that it was created, and it doesn't necessarily all fit in with where we are today. But there is, I believe, a bigger energy and a fundamental universal truth to everything, and I think that that's really what we're all trying to find on some level, and the reason that we're here. So these energies, this kind of distorted parts of ourselves, which in Aries, because Chiron is in Aries and Black Moon Lilith is in Aries, these kind of distorted masculine side of ourselves. And again, if we go back in history, a lot of our history has been based on war and pain and suffering and just very entrenched in bloodshed, really, which is a very Mars-ruled thing, because Mars rules blood. So it does have this kind of real warrior kind of previous times era energy, but we're still kind of seeing it play out in our world today. There's still the same battles kind of being fought over, shall we say, and it's almost like, you know, nobody even knows any longer why it's still going on, but it is still going on, because these wounds are still festering and still kind of going from generation to generation. And so we're also seeing it play out again in the kind of, as I was talking about, with the Eris energy of the kind of unaccepted female warrior-S energy. That is also another way that we're seeing it play out as well, coming up as the a kind of gender issue, if you like, with the masculine and the feminine energies, and also the brutality of men towards women when they can, you know, feel as though they can just invade a woman's space and that she doesn't have the right to refuse. And that I feel is something that's very strongly coming out more and more in our everyday media, if you like, as well. You know, it kind of being brought to the front. A lot of it, the media doesn't want to, at the moment, kind of really recognise, unless it suits them. But more and more stories are coming out about this, and there will be more and more stories coming out about it, because this time, this period, this astrological period of time is bringing it to the forefront. And with this full moon in Scorpio, bringing it all up from the depths, there's going to be a lot more. So lastly, still sitting within and encompassing the three energies of Saturn and Jupiter and Pluto, and giving them all a long-lasting sacred space hug, is the beautiful energy of the sacred space holder, who I see as being the star card in the tarot. And the star card in the tarot is all about hope, and it also is about the belief of connection to everything, of realizing our connection to everything, because sometimes hope is the only thing we have, but hope connects us, even though it's a kind of intangible quality. And I've spoken about this in my videos when I do my tarot readings. If the card comes up, sometimes it comes through strongly as that you can't actually put your finger on it, you can't actually hold it in your hand, but it's something that can get you through the most difficult of time periods in our lives, is hope that it will get better, that it will improve. And the energy that's there at this moment surrounding the energy of Jupiter, Saturn and Pluto while they're doing their thing is Clarico, that sacred space holder. She holds that divine and sacred space. While these planets are doing what the universe is telling them to do, or needs them to do, to bring in a completely new world vision, Clarico has been there right from the conjunction that happened in January, right through to now. She's still there, and she will remain there while Saturn retros back into Capricorn as well. So at this time of the full moon in Scorpio, I also feel as though it's the time that we are going to begin to rise like phoenixes from the ashes, because the energy of Scorpio can be three things. It can be the Scorpio, it can be the eagle, or it can be the phoenix. And I feel that it's the phoenix that we're finally coming out of those kind of more scorpionic energies. It could also be the eagle, the flight, taking flight, kind of connected to our higher energy, our higher consciousness, which is what this is also about as well, this astrological period, especially with this manifestation energy of the magician. So I'm going to finish my video there. I will be doing a full moon tarot read video later today, which I will also be putting out. I'll try and put this video out first, and then I will probably get the other video out tomorrow. Just say thank you very much to anybody who has watched. Thank you to those of you who have subscribed to my channel. I really do appreciate it. If you like this video, it's not going to resonate with everybody. I know it's not the normal kind of astrology reading. I also don't do the normal kind of tarot readings either, so you either do or don't resonate with my readings. I understand that. But if you do, could you please thumbs it up, get the YouTube algorithms to like it, and they will push it out and kind of get my message out there to more people. More people can come back and see more of my messages and see whether or not it connects with them as well, whether they resonate with it or not. Also tap the bell, because that will also let you know when my videos come out as well. And also there will be a free astrological link in the description box down below for anybody who wants to find out more about their own astrology and how to kind of see what's happening with the planets, with your own astrological chart, as in what transits and things that like transits being, for those that don't know, transits are something that happens when planets connect energetically to each other, and it happens natally as well. So your birth chart is like a blueprint of the moment that you first came into this world. It's a blueprint, and because the planets do what the planets do, they will kind of make connections with your natal chart throughout the rest of your life, which is why astrology can be so very, very predictable in many ways, and one of the original sciences. So with that being said, I will say I hope you all have a very happy full moon in Scorpio, from dark to light. I hope it's not too intense or too overwhelming, and hopefully I will see you back again soon. Take care of yourselves and each other.